we're going to look into the Russian-Ukraine conflict, what's currently going over there. I've been hearing a lot about like new autonomous weapons that specifically Ukraine is using, and so I want to look into that because that's scary stuff. Autonomous drones. These are the first thing that when the AI takes over, it'll be able to fully control, right? When we end up in a conflict with an AI, so best to at least know what's happening. All right, here's a comprehensive breakdown of both topics. The current state of the war in Ukraine, May 2026. The front lines. The war is now in its 5th year since Russia's full-scale invasion on February 24th, 2022. The front line stretches more than 700 miles along the eastern side of Ukraine, and Russia's control spans across approximately 20% of Ukraine's territory, including Crimea, annexed in 2014, and large part of the Donbass region. Over the past 12 months, May 2025 to May 2026, Russia captured approximately 1,714 square miles of Ukraine's territory, an area slightly larger than Rhode Island, representing approximately 0.7% of Ukraine's total territory, with average monthly gains of about 143 square miles. That is a bog. Like that is crazy. A month they capture on average 143 square miles, 0.7%. I mean, where is that? Like 130 months or something? They'll capture Ukraine. I mean, I don't know if you can keep it up that long. I've been hearing recent issues with the Russian side of the war. So, anyway, the situation on the front remains highly tense, with active fighting concentrated primarily in the Pokrovsk and in Kupiansk sectors. Over the past week alone, Russian forces conducted intensive attacks using aviation, artillery, and unmanned systems. Approximately 1,600 drones and over 1,700 guided aerial bombs were reported. And this is in a month? Over the past week. So in a week, 1,600 drones and 1,700 guided aerial bombs. That is a lot. That's a lot of bombing in a week. With the most massive single attack occurring on May 2nd, when roughly 268 drones and missiles were launched. Like, this is the thing, right? Russia is transitioning into a wartime economy. And so they're producing these things in mass. And so like a wartime economy is gonna like hurt domestic economy for the people significantly, but it does mean like the number of drones and aerial bombs does seem to be going up on the Russian side. Human toll. Estimated Russian military casualties, killed or wounded, stand at around 1 million, based on late February 2026 estimates from a highly informed former senior Western official. Ukraine's military casualties are estimated at 250,000 to 300,000 over the same period. I mean, Russia has a lot more just people to send to the war, to the meat grinder, essentially. but still, that's terrible. This is, let's just pull the calc. The 5 years of war, right? That's 60 months. If Ukraine, let's assume the higher end of the range, is losing 300,000 over their 60 months, that means in an average month, they have about 5,000 casualties for each month that goes on. Over 1,000 a week. $178 a day. These are killed and wounded. They're experiencing 178 a day. Like, this is high intensity combat. Continuously. That's crazy. Okay. 2025 was the deadliest year of the war for Ukrainian civilians, with 2,514 people killed and more than 12,000 injured. 30% higher than 2024, 70% higher than 2023. Sharp increase, like compared to the military tolls, that's still quite low. The sharp increase in long range attacks has meant that the consequences of the war are now felt by civilians far beyond the front lines. Like in Ukraine, they literally have roads that have mesh set up around them to stop drones from hitting civilian cars. As of May 7th, 2026, total Russian combat losses since the start of the full-scale invasion are estimated at approximately 1,338,060 personnel. Why is that higher than this one? Russian matters. Brain inform. Oh, so the Russian one, their numbers are lower. Total Russian combat losses. Since early May alone, at least 70 Ukrainian civilians have been killed and over 500 wounded in a wave of Russian attacks. All right. Infrastructure and energy. Ukraine's energy infrastructure has been devastated. Combining occupied, destroyed, and damaged power capacity, Ukraine has lost approximately 48%, 27 gigawatts of its pre-war installed electricity generating capacity of 56.1 gigawatts. An energy expert estimated in March 2026 that restoring full capacity will require years, with only 30 to 40% potentially restored before the next winter in the best case scenario. I mean, given that the war's gone on for 5 years already, they're talking about ending it before the next winter. I mean, it would be nice if it ends. Certainly. This is, what is it, 170, calculator, 178 a day in the Ukraine side are being lost. More than that on the Russian side. Ceasefire talks and diplomacy. Russia has declared a unilateral ceasefire for May 8th, 9th. Russia has declared a unilateral ceasefire. Okay. Coinciding with its annual World War II Victory Day commemoration, threatened a massive missile strike on Kyiv if Ukraine violates it. The ceasefire was first proposed by Putin during a phone call with President Trump, while delegations from Russia and Ukraine met for U.S. brokered peace talks in Switzerland. The meeting yielded no breakthroughs. Control of territory remains key restricting point as Russia insists Ukraine cede control of the Donbass region. A deal breaker for Kyiv. So that's the main. That's the main thing preventing peace. Donbass. This is the eastern side. Ukraine, right? I think that. Yeah. Donbass is Luhansk and Donetsk. So they want to, like, they want Crimea, Donetsk, and Luhansk, these regions of Ukraine, in a peace deal. Ukraine war front lines. So is this the current set? Russian fortifications in Ukraine. So the actual site, the BBC. News. How old is this? Oh, okay. This is old. Kind of looking for the modern front line. Probably have to go. Interactive map. Here we go. Looking at the actual lines. So Luhansk is up here. Donetsk is here. I turn some of these off. Oh, it doesn't look like it's gonna let me. I mean, to be fair, like it doesn't look like it's moved like at all. I mean, they said, what was it? 0.7% of the territory has been taken in a year. Just a slow grind. $178 people a day. Like, oh, I keep trying to go up to zoom. So I think this is the actual border, right? I remember that Ukraine did an offensive into Russia. Is that what this is? That more solid line is the actual border, right? What's orange? Assess Russian infiltration areas. Claimed Russian territory. Assess Russian control is the dark red. Ukraine advances into Russia. That one. The blue zone. Not this type of. I don't know. This map's a little confusing. I like to turn certain things off. Ooh, we full screen this. So there still are areas Okay, zoom out a little bit. We got all of Ukraine. Got all of Ukraine. Dark area. Russian controlled before February 2024, 2022. And then this is the new area they control. Claimed Ukrainian counteroffensive is all this blue stuff. Like, they got close to Kyiv in the beginning, right? They were coming down from Belarus. And so they did control this all at one time and they got pushed back. But that was early on in the war. And they had another counteroffensive where I think they pushed back this. Okay, let's continue. Talks. Control of territory remains the key sticking point, as Russia insists Ukraine cede control of the Donbass region, a deal breaker for Kyiv. Okay, autonomous weapons on the battlefield. Ukraine as a global war lab. Since Russia's full-scale invasion in February 2022, the Ukraine battlefield has been transformed into a clash between conventional forces backed by a growing number of autonomous and remote-controlled systems, effectively redefining how military forces wage modern warfare. In July 2025, Ukraine formalized this role by launching the Test in Ukraine initiative through its Braval Defense Initiative Complex and Innovation Complex, actively inviting global arms manufacturers to field drones, robots, missiles, and laser systems in real combat, with Ukraine units returning detailed performance data from the front. Whoa. So, if you're on Ukraine's side, you can essentially use the war as live field tests. Oh. Hi, are you out? Like, technically, yeah. Laura, what's going on? So, if you're on the Ukraine side, this is why we're seeing such advancements in drone capacity in Ukraine. Because it's not just Ukraine doing it. It's an entire, like, all the defense manufacturers who side with Ukraine can use Ukraine as an active testing ground. Drone warfare aerial. Autonomous navigation makes drone strikes 3 to 4 times more likely to succeed. So, from my understanding, the big jump that's happened recently is we've moved from drones that you needed a controller. You needed someone with like a headset on, flying the little drone around. Oh, there's the person, fly into the person, hit the load button. Right? They've moved on where the drone autonomously finds a target and autonomously hunting and seeking its own targets and then destroying them without human oversight in any way. This is extremely effective because most anti-drone technology relies on cutting that connection between the controller and the drone operator. The drone operator and the drone itself. If you cut the connection, the drone just sits there, easy to shoot down. But if it's all autonomous, then there's no signal to cut. Even if you cut its connection, it'll maintain and continue its operating procedure on board. By removing the need for constant manual control and stable communications, both vulnerable to electronic warfare, AI-enabled drones raised the target's engagement success rate from around 10 to 20% to 70 to 80%. That's insane. So drones just went from being 15% effective to being 75% effective. Whoa. Like that's a jump. As engineers put it, from autonomy they gain even more. The self-navigating drones rely on image recognition algorithms, and the mass deployment of Ukraine battlefields are enabling both Russian and Ukrainian technologists to build enormous data sets that improve the training and precision of those AI algorithms. So they're building murder AIs. And because they're in an active war, they're doing really well building murder AIs. Ground robots. As of early 2026, thousands of ground robots are crawling across the gray zone along the front lines in eastern Ukraine. In January 2026, Ukraine forces captured 3 Russian soldiers, and not gonna try that one, using a single ground robot. The footage circulated widely online. In December 2025, near Polsk and Teliska, a Ukrainian droid, on them droids, droid TW12.7 rope. I gotta have a look at the ground. Give me images. Are these fully autonomous? Like, when someone approaches you on the battlefield with a gun, you can shoot them. Like, you can fight them. Shooting this thing isn't gonna stop it. Like, you're at the stage where you need like a bomb, you need to blow it up. So they're basically like bullet resistant soldiers. Light arms resistant. I need to know if they're fully autonomous. 1 a.m. Is the fully autonomous? Or do these things still have drivers? The Ukraine droid TW12.7 developed by is not considered fully autonomous in terms of independent decision making for lethal force, but it features significant AI assisted autonomy for specific combat tasks. So it still has person making decision. It functions as a hybrid system designed to keep operators out of their direct line of fire while automating the most complex parts of the engagement. While the human operator generally remains in the loop for the final command to fire, the system automates several critical functions. Autonomous targeting, detection, and tracking. Yep. Ballistic calculation, drop and to hit the actual target, and navigation. So basically, you're just telling it where to go, It'll navigate itself there, find a target, and then you give it command on whether or not to shoot the target. What's the other one? I think it's like the Ukraine Hornet drone. This is the one I was looking at. This one. I think this is the system that has become fully autonomous. Well, let's check. The Hornet drone, specifically the loitering munition version developed by Swiftbeat, is widely considered a highly advanced AI-enabled system. It operates on a scale of conditional autonomy rather than being fully autonomous in all mission phases. AI and features. The Hornet is distinguished by a deep integration of AI, which allows it to perform several tasks without direct human input. Terminal guidance. Once an operator identifies a target, the AI can take over the final strike phase. So it still needs a human has to give it the okay on a target. This is critical, so it's not fully autonomous. This is critical for overcoming electronic warfare. Even if the radio link to the operator is severed, the drone on board AI remembers the target and continues the dive autonomous. Target recognition. The system uses, like they've been doing this one for a long time. The system uses computer vision to calculate objects in real time and highlight them for the operator. This is something we've seen for a while. Navigation. It can navigate via visual odometry or preset waypoints in GPS denied environments, reducing its reliance on vulnerable satellite signals. So even if you jam it and get in the way of its GPS, it can still hit the target. But you still need an operator to confirm targets, essentially. The operator in the loop. Reality, despite its high-tech brain, it's not a fire and forget weapon that wanders the battlefield looking for things to kill on its own. Human authorization. Standard operational procedures require a human to confirm a target before a lethal strike is initiated. This prevents blue-on-blue friendly fire incidents and assures tactical control. I mean, like, if a machine ever tries to destroy humanity, this is one of the first weapons that it'll be able to control, because this is like a human authorization. Like, it can just provide that for its own targets. I mean, this one and that this thing, like, warfare is changing very quickly. Because if you have light arms, there's nothing you can do against this. Like, you can't stop that. It's basically like a mini autonomous tank. Okay, let's continue. Ukraine droid TW-12.7 robotics detected and disrupted a Russian night assault, destroying an armored vehicle in the process. They have like anti-tank weaponry. In April 2026, Ukraine President Zelensky announced that for the first time in the history of this war, an enemy position was taken exclusively by unmanned platforms. Ground systems and drones, with no human soldiers in the assault itself. Are these truly autonomous? Fully autonomous warfare remains an aspiration rather than a reality. The current deployment of AI is partial in scope, enhancing certain functions rather than enabling full system autonomy. The Ukraine military uses the term autonomous systems interchangeably with unmanned systems, or platforms equipped with basic autonomous functions such as navigation or targeting. At present, robots like the droid TW-12.7 are remotely operated with limited autonomous functions depending on their programming. The aerial ones sounds like they have more autonomy, but still require a human in the kill chain to confirm target that this is not friendly fire. However, the direction is clear. As production expands and designs are refined, these systems are likely to become more capable and feature increasing levels of coordination and autonomy. So they're going that way, to where you just boot a drone up and then it goes and does its thing. And its thing is killing someone. That is a terrifying thing. It's something we probably wouldn't have or even be close to if there wasn't a war in Ukraine. Like, war is what triggers mass innovation like it's not always a good thing. Although a lot of military tech ends up helping everyone, right? The internet started as a military communication system, and now it's used everywhere. Although I don't see the same functioning for autonomous weapons. Okay. The emergence of fully autonomous drones, so-called killer robots, has triggered fierce international debates. A UN report suggests that Turkish-made Karu-2 loitering munition drone, operating in fully autonomous mode, identified and attacked fighters in Libya in 2020. Really? Yeah, those ones are scary. What do these ones look like? These ones are bigger. Much bigger. And they say that in 2020, identified and attacked fighters in Libya. Experts warn that existing international laws are insufficient to regulate autonomous weapons that may target and kill without human oversight. The United Nations Institute for Disarmament Research is set to meet in June 2026 to examine the implications of AI for international peace and security. Despite the advances, Ukraine's expanding robot army remains incapable of carrying out many military functions that require infantry, such as clearing and holding urban terrain. Analysts argue that ground robots should be viewed as an important part of Ukraine's evolving defense that can help save lives while raising the cost of Russia's invasion, but not as a miracle cure for manpower shortages. Well. Oh. The situation remains deeply fluid. Combination of grinding attrition warfare. We saw that, right? 178 casualties a day, wounded or killed on just the Ukrainian side. Probably have 3 times that on the Russian side, just from the numbers. Devastating civilian strikes, stalled diplomacy, rapid technological evolution on the battlefield makes this one of the most consequential and closely watched conflicts of the 20th. Yeah, we're not gonna watch a document. I think this one had shorter video. Between landmines and fears, everyday life in war-torn Ukraine. Like, remember, there's a lot of people. Ukraine war frontline map. Like, there's a lot of Ukraine where people are just trying to live their everyday life. And if you're near border, you're open to drone attacks, to bombs. Like, none of that is good. I'll turn off the. I don't want. Does Ukraine occupy any of the Russian land still? There's something else I wanted to ask it. Oh, we'll ask. Yeah, the Russian figures are 101.338 million personnel killed or wounded. Ukraine's estimates 250,000 to 300,000. Ukraine's incursion to Russian territory, the Kursk Gambit. The surprise invasion, okay. The retreat, a new incursion, bigger picture. Interestingly, April 2026 marked the first month Russia suffered a net territorial loss in Ukraine. What? Weren't they gaining land? And now you're telling me that they're actually losing land? Like, they gain like 100 something kilometer miles squared a month. But not in April 2026. Interestingly, April 2026 marked the first month Russia suffered a net territorial loss in Ukraine since the original Kursk invasion of August 2024, losing 116 square kilometers of controlled territory. Russia's rate of advance has been steadily declining since November 2025, but they're using more bombs, but they're losing territory, with average daily gains falling to 2.9 kilometers squared, down sharply from 9.76 kilometers squared per day in the same period of 2025. So, to directly answer your question, Ukraine no longer holds the large swath of Kursk territory it seized in 2024, but it has just launched a new cross-borders push in the same region as of this week, keeping the situation very fluid. Whether this new incursion is a major offensive or a limited raid remains to be seen. How close are we to a ceasefire in the Ukraine-Russian conflict? Let's kind of want to watch this one, but let's see if we can find something that gives us more of an overview. Ukraine drones almost completely destroyed Putin's security site in Crimea. Russia just lost this war. Ukraine goes on the all-out offensive. 2 days ago. Putin fears assassination attempts amid stalling war with Ukraine. The one thing Putin feared, losing Ukraine, just wiped it out. I mean, like, these definitely all have a lean. Considering Ukraine has been losing territory up until this month. But I mean, if they're gaining territory this month, what if they gain territory next month? Yeah, so many of these people like follow this day-to-day kind of thing. Russia calls for Kyiv. I don't know how to find like a neutral take on this. Like, the military show does a lot of these, and they all seem to be like Russia losing, Ukraine winning. Okay, well, I don't know if any of these are going to give me a neutral. I do want to look at this. Between landmines and fear, everyday life in war-torn Ukraine. Short DW documentary. 12 minutes. We'll look at that after. Let's see here. The honest answer is not very close at all. Here's the full picture of where things stand. How close is a ceasefire? The state of diplomacy in May 2026. Competing ceasefires that aren't really ceasefires. The most telling sign of how far apart both sides are right now is what just happened this week. Russia and Ukraine have declared competing unilateral ceasefires. Russia announced its ceasefire for May 8th to 9th to protect Victoria Day, while Ukraine declared its own separate ceasefire for May 5th to 6th. These weren't agreed upon truths. They were essentially PR moves by each side to claim the moral high ground. Ukraine's foreign minister said Russia violated Kyiv's unilateral ceasefire almost immediately, launching a barrage of airstrikes with 108 combat drones and 3 missiles. This shows that Russia rejects peace, and its fake calls for a ceasefire on May 9th have nothing to do with diplomacy. So in other words, the 5th, the 6th, so a couple days ago, that one was immediately broken. And so we can assume the one on the 9th, the 8th and 9th. There's no way there's a ceasefire then. I don't think that one's going to hold either. Ukraine's foreign minister said Russia violated Kyiv's unilateral ceasefire almost immediately, launching a barrage, airstrikes. Okay, yeah. Bluntly, as France 24 reported, there is no signs that the 4-year war is close to being resolved at the negotiating table. That is sad. Because even with everything else, what is it? We still see 178 casualties on the Ukrainian side a day. A day. And we see 3 to 4 times that a day on the Russian side. Is this just like a permanent war now? His position is consistent and publicly stated. Sovereignty and territorial integrity are non-negotiable, and any peace framework must provide credible security guarantees without coerced territorial concessions. Moscow, by contrast, is pressing for formal recognition of its territorial control in the occupied regions, and for Ukraine to renounce NATO membership, demands Kyiv rejects as incompatible with statehood. So they're still a long way away. Like, they're nowhere near each other in negotiating. The fate of Donetsk province is the central flashpoint. Russia currently occupies about 75% of the province and adamantly demands the rest, roughly 2,000 square miles that its military has failed to capture despite 4 years of effort. Ukraine just as adamantly refuses to hand it over, and about 200,000 Ukrainians call that land home. Trump's roles, big promise, little progress. Okay, let's just get to the bottom line. The gap between the two sides remains vast on territory, on NATO, on security guarantees, and fundamentally on trust. Short holiday truce keeps getting announced and violated within hours. Formal peace talks are happening but producing no breakthrough. The war is entering its 5th year, with both sides still fighting intensely. Most analysts see the path to a lasting ceasefire as long and uncertain. Dependent less on diplomacy right now and more on shifts in the battlefield or in political will, particularly in Moscow. So we see a lot about this new offensive, right? Like, that's what all these were talking about. I keep seeing news about a new offensive by Ukraine. Can you go into more details? Is there any current offensive action by Ukraine? This one doesn't know how to put commas in. Details. Or any. Let's see what it's got there. Background music going, we're good. Yeah, I'm starting to really like Claude. I wish its voice mode was a little different, but okay. Let's have a look. Ukraine is actually conducting several simultaneous offensive operations right now across very different domains. Here's the full breakdown. Ukraine's current offensive actions. Ukraine is not sitting back defensively. It's waging an active multi-front offensive campaign operating on 3 distinct levels simultaneously. On the ground inside Russia, deep in Russian airspace, and at sea. Let's have a read. From my understanding, I think Canada just gave like $250 million more in support to Ukraine. Maybe I'll ask that next. The new Kursk ground invasion. Oh, so Kursk is part of Russia, right? This is the most dramatic and headline-grabbing offensive move. Late on May 4th and into the 5th, an armored Ukraine wasn't right before they asked for a ceasefire. Late on the 4th and into the 5th, an armored Ukrainian ground incursion breached the Russian-Ukraine border into the Kursk region near settlement of Yotuna. Battles were reported at the border, and residents were evacuated from several settlements in the Glushkrovs district. Russian sources claim that 250 Ukrainian troops and more than 15 units of heavy equipment were involved in the push. That's not a lot. The Institute for the Study of War assessed that Ukraine's forces have advanced into southern Okay, we're just not gonna. Let's see if this can get it for me.
Tyakino.
Tyakino. Something tells me that's probably not the right pronunciation. Tyakino, but we'll go with it. Southern Tyakino, and taken up position there, based on May 6th footage of a Russian airstrike on a building in a town. Russian sources claim Ukrainian forces had seized up to 2 streets in Tyakino, with footage published over the following days indicating further Ukrainian advances in and around the settlement. So they're pushing into Russia again. Interesting. The deep strike drone campaign hitting Russian oil economy. This is arguably Ukraine's most strategic, significant offensive. It has been escalating sharply all year. They've been doing this one for a while now. The goal is simple: drain Russia's war chest by crippling the oil revenues that fund the invasion. Go for the pipelines and factories. Ukraine's long-range drone campaign against Russia oil infrastructure escalated sharply since January 2026. Advances in the Zaporizhia. On the conventional front lines in Ukraine itself, there's also been localized Ukrainian gains. As recently as May 6, ISW confirmed that Ukrainian forces advanced in western Zaporizhia Oblast, a notable development in an area that has seen mostly Russian pressure for months. Big picture, okay. Ukraine offensive posture in 2026 reflects a deliberate strategic shift. Rather than massing troops for a single large counteroffensive, which wasn't working, Kyiv is fighting on multiple asymmetric fronts at once, using drones to economically bleed Russia from thousands of kilometers away, ground incursions to maintain physiological pressure, and preventing Russia offensive on other axes. If you push on one front, they've got to respond, and localized advances where Russian lines show weakness. It's a leaner, more unpredictable approach designed to maximize pain on Russia while conserving Ukraine limited manpower. So this is the stance that I think they should have took in the beginning. I do not think I speak that language. Well, thanks for checking out the stream. So this is the stance I think Ukraine should have taken from the beginning. When it comes to manpower, like, you just, where's my, keep closing my map. No, here, like, just look at the size difference. Ukraine, Russia. Manpower wise, like productive industry wise, you can never compete with that. But you can, if you just ratchet up the pay and go for energy infrastructure, make them bleed for every inch they take. Then you will ratchet up the pressure on Moscow until they're forced to essentially come to the table to talk about peace. I know that the whole thing going on right now down here, the Strait of Hormuz in Iran, has inflated oil prices, which, I mean, it helps Russia, but if you're hitting, if you're continuously damaging the Russian infrastructure around oil, they can't profit from it like they would be able to. And with long-range drones, you're able to do quite a bit. And so their current strategy of just keeping pressure applied, I think, is their best chance at a positive outcome to the war. We shouldn't forget about a couple of laws by Polish government to make their power. You mean in Ukraine? Because I know, what is it? The US stopped providing direct aid to Russia, but they still allow like the EU and Poland and Canada to purchase US arms for Ukraine, so that they can still use like the US equipment that's already been sent there. Right? Does the US still provide aid to Ukraine? How much aid has Canada sent? I heard that they signed another aid package recently. Poland government to me. So the Polish, you're saying, are giving loan. I think they're just giving a lot of military support. How much military support has Poland provided? Okay. Does the US still provide military aid to Ukraine? Separate that. How much? And I heard that they signed. Okay. Let's see what it gets there. I know I said I'd watch this video. We'll get to it. I end up going down these rabbit holes. But yeah, just the size difference. The idea of winning a war, you have to get war exhaustion to the point that they come to the table for peace. I think that's the only way you can get out of it. Okay. United States aid still there, but dramatically reduced. The U.S. remains a supporter of Ukraine, but the situation under the Trump administration has changed significantly. After Russia's invasion in February 2022, Ukraine became by far the top recipient of U.S. foreign aid. The first time a European country held the top spot since the Marshall Plan. However, there has been no new U.S. aid legislation since 2024. So, when Trump went in, right? And U.S. commitment has been called into question under the Trump administration. According to official U.S. government figures, total U.S. assistance to Ukraine from February, so the start of the war, to now, has been between 188 billion in all forms, with 130 to 175 billion actual dispersed for allocation. Of that, total U.S. military assistance specifically stands at approximately $75.9 billion, according to both the Kiel Institute and Center for Strategic and International Studies. So, military assistance, total assistance, 188 billion. Okay, let's see. Canada has signed a very significant new package just days ago. Here's the full picture. There were a couple of loans, but it was more like donations. There's for sure lots of weapon donations. And they're selling surplus of weapons. How is that country in a state of war? Have surplus of weapons. Let a country in a state of war have surplus of weapons? I mean, I know specifically that these countries all in here, Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia, like they're some of the like highest per capita supporters, you know, just because bordering Russia. So these countries being some of the biggest actual supporters per capita of supplies to Ukraine, supplies and aid, more so than the other countries. The latest package, another 270 million through NATO prioritized Ukraine requirement list. Mechanism that funds procurement of priority US built capacities, including, yeah, so when we spend this money, we're essentially buying goods from the US, military goods, and sending them to Ukraine. This brings Canada's total monetary support of Ukraine to 25.8 billion. So the US is at 180 billion. We're about a tenth the size, I think, of the US in population. A little over a tenth the size. And we've given 25 in monetary support, which is compared to this number. But then the US hasn't really been providing any support for the last couple months. I mean, years, right? 2 years of Trump now coming on. Okay, those are the numbers I wanted to see. How about Poland? Poland rules deserve special attention. Geographically, it is the main artery through which Western aid flows into Ukraine. Total military aid. Poland has provided approximately, we'll just go in US dollars, 4.9 billion in military assistance since the beginning of the war. Polish defense officials note, for the scale of our economy, for a scale of our country, our army, and this is a very large amount. What's the population of Poland? Population of Poland. 38 million. Oh, you were right on. 8 million. So that's similar to Canada's size. 4.9 billion USD. I mean, Canada's considered a wealthy country, right? Yes. Why we have provided so much. For the scale of our country, our army, this is a very large amount. Early leader and ongoing. No, okay, big picture on Western aid. For the first time since the war began, combined European aid now tops US contributions. Oh, because the US has stopped contributing. Now the Europe is the larger contributor. The political shift produced by Trump's return to office has incentivized Europeans to dramatically increase their own self-reliance in supporting Ukraine. Canada, Poland, Germany, and the UK and the Nordic countries have all stepped up considerably to fill the gap left by a less engaged Washington. So another reason why Canada is like, one, like we do culturally identify a lot with Europe, but also something people forget is that we share Arctic with Russia. Like, as Canada, we basically are a bordering country with Russia. There's just a lot of snow on that border up there. Because this map is one of the ones that stretches it out. So the upper part of the world seems a lot bigger. And obviously you can see it like that. But on a globe, if you look at a globe, you'll see it. Funny that our healthcare is in bankruptcy. Other ways of can afford to help her. Oh, what a joke. Our healthcare is in bankruptcy, so I'm assuming you're Canadian then. Like other ways are social help. I mean, oh, you're Polish. Hello. Your healthcare is in bankruptcy. Oh, I mean, that sucks. I've heard good things about Poland recently, though. Like, in at least the development style. Like, a lot of people that had left Poland have begun returning because security and development and opportunities are actually increasing. Poland was one of the democracies I was going to look at some point. How's the Russian economy doing? Is the increased gas prices helping them? Is it possible that they could be economically forced to the table for peace negotiations? Really? You didn't get that? That sucks. How's Russia's economy doing? Is it possible that they could be forced to the peace table for economic reasons? See, it gets the capital right. It doesn't get the periods right. Did I lose background sound? Clearly, we need more. We need some more music files in that folder. Right now, the short answer is Russia's economy is in serious and worsening trouble, but forced to the peace table is more complicated than it sounds. Here's the full picture. I can't see the side. Camera's over here. OBS. Can't actually look this. Okay. This is one of the most debated questions among analysts right now. The short answer is Russia's economy is in serious worsening trouble. Okay, we read that. State of Russia economy in 2026. The sugar rush is over. Russia is likely sliding from a phase of managed cooling into outright stagnation in 2026. Earlier boost from wartime military spending is now fading. Its costs are being passed on through higher taxes. Revenue fall short amid lower oil prices. Continued lower oil price right now. And continue western pressure. Russian economy is likely climbing. Stuck above. Okay. Let's get to the bottom and secure it. The bottom line. Russia's economy is deteriorating steadily, not collapsing dramatically, but grinding down. The analogy most economists reach for is slow bleeding rather than sudden crash. The economic pressure is real and mounting, but Putin has shown a remarkable willingness to impose pain on his own population to continue the war. The most likely path to the peace table from the economic angle is a gradual convergence of factors. Falling oil revenue, which is not happening. I mean, like, Russia is hitting their. I mean, Ukraine is hitting Russia's oil infrastructure. Ukraine drone campaign on energy infrastructure. Tightening sanctions, elite discontent, and recruitment difficulty. That together makes the cost of continuing the war feel higher to the Kremlin than the cost of settling. Most serious analysts put that inflection point somewhere in 2026, 2027 windows. I mean, I'm not sure how much I trust analysts on this, but with significant